Hey everyone, what's going on? I am Gregg Sussman, joined today by Jim Sonis of FanDuel. The Charles Schwab Classic is in the past. But the good news is the PGA Tour continues this weekend. What's happening, Jim?
Yeah, it doesn't just continue, but it continues once again with a really good field. Back-to-back impressive fields for the PGA Tour coming out of the COVID-19 break. So I can't complain all that much. It's nice to have something to watch on Thursday and Friday during the work week and occupy our weekends too. So I'm in a pretty good mood. How are you doing, Greg?
Excited the PGA Tour is back. Give me something to watch over the weekend where I was enjoying it. And everybody was talking about golf this past weekend, and it made me excited to have it continue on week after week after week here. So let's get back into our lineups here. Let's find a winner. And let's begin, well, exactly where we began last week, and that's with best player in the world, and that is Rory McIlroy.
Yeah, the finish for Rory last week wasn't all that flattering. Finished just 32nd, but there were a lot of good glimpses throughout that weekend for Rory. Played mostly well outside of the front nine on Sunday, and outside of that, I think he had a pretty strong showing. You look at his stats, he did still gain 5 strokes tee to green. The biggest issue for McIlroy was on the greens, where he lost 1.3 strokes putting. But this week, he goes to Bermuda, and Bermuda is the best surface by a pretty wide margin for Rory from a putting perspective, so we should expect that putting to rebound this week. Statistically, he's really good for this course because accuracy matters a lot, and McIlroy, despite being a long hitter, is also accurate off the tee, ranks 45th in driving accuracy over the past 50 rounds. That's according to Fantasy National. He is also 10th in approach, 5th in scrambling, so good stats across the board, including this week the putting as well. This is the first time Rory has been to Hilton Head since he was a teenager, so from a course history perspective, there's nothing to work with because all the way back then is not relevant for predicting what Rory will do this weekend. But he does have a lot of really good history at links courses, and this is exactly that. He fits statistically, and he is among the best golfers in the world. So $12,200 is definitely a hefty salary, but Rory is still worth it. He will be one of the most popular golfers in the entire field, but it is for good reason. He is a tremendous option both for cash games and for tournaments, and again, Greg, I'm just going to keep on using Rory until he gives me a reason not to.
Despite the price at $12,200, the accuracy of Rory McIlroy on a course like this at Hilton Head makes too much sense not to put him in your lineup. As Jim said, you just keep going with him until he gives you a reason to stay away. Up next, significantly cheaper than Rory McIlroy here, just over $10,000. It's Sungjae Im. It's an impressive field, like you said. Sungjae Im always a part of our lineups here when we're talking about the PGA Tour. Why do you like Sungjae Im here this week?
Yeah, in the past when we talked about Sungjae Im, it was more as like a low 10,000 type golfer, and he's definitely ascended, but he has earned that increased salary by golfing really well over an ever-expanding sample. And Sungjae Im this week, 29-1 to win over at FanDuel Sportsbook, and he is very worthy of those odds because he is a good fit for this course. Sungjae Im over the past 50 rounds per Fantasy National ranks 20th in driving accuracy. That is the best ranking of any golfer who is 60-1 to win or shorter. Most of the guys who have that top-end ability aren't super accurate off the tee, but Sungjae Im is. He's also 43rd in approach, and he has used that combination of good driving and good approach play to rattle off 3 straight top 10 finishes, 2 of which were before the COVID-19 break, and then 1 after last week. And now Sungjae goes to Bermuda putting, which is his best putting surface, similar to what we discussed with Rory McIlroy. What Sungjae Im gets you is a second golfer with the upside to win and at a lower salary. There's a pretty big tier drop off, at least in my eyes, after Sungjae Im at $10,900. So what I want to do most often this weekend is lock in 2 golfers who have odds around 30-1 or shorter to win, whether it be Rory McIlroy down at 11-1 or Sungjae Im here at 30-1, and then build from there. What Sungjae does is he allows me to do that without forking over a whole lot of salary. So $10,900 gets me a more balanced lineup, something I definitely want to try to get for this weekend. And Sungjae Im allows me to do that without sacrificing the upside of getting a win.
The upside for Sungjae Im is palpable. He's 30-1 here. You get him in your lineup, $10,900. And it's not that upper tier that Rory is. You have 2 guys here in your top price threshold that have the ability to win this tournament. Sungjae Im has improved as a golfer mightily over the past couple of years. Now he's one of our favorites to win this tournament and one of our favorites inside of our lineups. Moving on, we get to Matthew Fitzpatrick, who's just under $10,000, $9,700 this week over on FanDuel. Fitzpatrick has also played well as of late. Why do you like Fitzpatrick here this weekend?
Yeah, Greg, in general, there are two situations in which you want to target Matthew Fitzpatrick. The first is on a non-distance course because he's not super long off the tee. And the second one is when they're on Bermuda greens because he is a tremendous Bermuda putter. We get both those things this weekend. It is a shorter course with Bermuda greens. Let's ride with Matthew Fitzpatrick at $9,700. Over the past 50 rounds per Fantasy National, he ranks 19th in driving accuracy. And he's 41st in approach. And that is in addition to ranking 10th in putting on Bermuda over the past 100 rounds. So really good stats profile for Fitzpatrick. And I think the thing that I like about him is if I'm going with someone in the upper 9,000s, I need the chance they can win. And Fitzpatrick has shown the ability to have really pop weeks. And that's what we want. We want that upside. Fitzpatrick's gained at least 3.9 strokes in approach in 3 of his past 8 measured PGA Tour events. And one of those was the US Open. So he can do really well even against tougher fields, which is what we have for this weekend. Fitzpatrick has been to Hilton Head 5 times already, even though he is a younger golfer. He was 14th here 2 years ago, so $9,700, good stats profile, pretty high floor with access to a high ceiling. I like everything about Matthew Fitzpatrick because I think that's just a good course fit, a good golfer, and potentially an outside shot at the win as well.
Fitzpatrick knows this course, and the fact that you have those Bermuda greens really sets up well for a nice outing for Fitzpatrick. He does have the history here, 14th a couple of years ago, as Jim mentioned, and with those Bermuda greens and not needing the long driving distance, Fitzpatrick, a really solid play over on FanDuel. Up next for us, Jim, we get to your boy Joel Dahmen, who we're used to putting in our lineups here, but usually for a little bit cheaper. You're paying up for Joel Dahmen here this week. Why is it worth it?
You got to pay for performance, Greg, and Joel Dahmen has had that in flush recently. He's been tremendous. He's had 4 straight top 20 finishes, and 3 of those were before the COVID-19 layoff. One of those was since he was 18th last week, and in that event, he gained 5.2 strokes in approach, which was his second straight event at that number or higher. So again, like we talked about with Matthew Fitzpatrick, we want golfers who can have pop weeks. Joel Dahmen, very much that. He is good statistically for this course because he is 30th in accuracy, 18th in approach, 26th in scrambling. So from a ball striking perspective, Joel Dahmen is going to get the job done. And we have seen that come through over the past 4 events. The downside of Joel Dahmen is that he's generally a really bad putter, which is a thread here in general on the hurry up. We like to go with bad putters pretty often. Dahmen very much fits that. So the floor is not very good, and that's a concern for Dahmen for sure. There are some other guys here like Billy Horschel and Ian Poulter you could turn to if you really just want a gun for the floor. But from an upside perspective, Damon's got it. He has shown that recently. As long as he just doesn't completely suck on the greens, he can do really well for you in DFS. And I'm good buying into that upside when it's $9,500. Again, for cash games, I would probably lean more towards someone like Ian Poulter, whose cut odds are a little bit better. But if I just want upside, and I think that I am okay gunning for that at $9,500, I'm going to go with Joel Dahmen in this range.
I love it. As long as he doesn't completely suck at putting, he's got a good shot to produce value in our FanDuel lineups. Dahmen has been known to suck on the greens. If he doesn't, we're in a good spot. A mid-range price for Joel Dahmen because you have to pay up now. He's been playing better as of late. The putter is working. Well, we did well on FanDuel. Up next for us, Brian Harman played well at the Charles Schwab last week, finished in a tie for 23rd, 8 under par. You think Harman has some success again here?
Yeah, Harman is only $8,800. We don't need to have him to have like a ton of success to be a great DFS play. But I think that is something he can do because Brian Harman has been a longtime favorite here once again on the hurry up, but we've kind of backed off of him recently because going to the COVID-19 layoff, Harman was in a pretty bad slump. He had lost strokes in approach in 4 straight events. That's not what you expect out of Brian Harman, who is generally a really good second and third shot golfer. But last week, in the first event we saw in 3 months, we were looking for golfers who deviated from what they were doing before the layoff. Harman was one of those guys. He gained 3.8 strokes in approach, finished 23rd overall, even though he lost 4 strokes off the tee. Harman ranks 36th in driving accuracy. So you look at that off the tee performance last week, would not expect that to continue as we go to another accuracy-centric course. Should expect to bounce back off the tee. If he can pair that with another good week on his approach play, Harman could really give you a really solid finish. And unlike Joel Dahmen, Brian Harman is a good putter on Bermuda. So I think the safety here is pretty high, and I think that it's high enough where we can consider Brian Harman for cash games. He makes it a lot easier to afford Rory McIlroy in those formats if you want to do so. I do personally. I want to get Rory in there, so I want to look for cheap guys who I think have a good floor, and Brian Harman at $8,800 I think gives us exactly that, but also is a little bit of upside sprinkled in there as well.
Enough upside to make it worth it. We were looking, like you said, for somebody that, well, changed an approach of some sort after the COVID-19 layoff. And it looked like Brian Harman did that last week. We'll see if he can stay consistent here on back-to-back weeks. Price not too high in the 8,000s, like you said. He doesn't need to do too much to make it worth it being in our lineups. Hopefully he does just that. One final golfer to speak about here on today's edition of the Hurry Up, and it's the Canadian Adam Hadwin. Once again, priced pretty close here to Brian Harman. Why is Adam Hadwin worth putting in our lineups here this week?
Yeah, Adam Hadwin is someone I was interested in last week, probably because of the course fit. It's a similar course this week where we don't need to emphasize distance, and Hadwin's salary went down even though he made the cut. He was $9,000 last week, $8,700 for this week, and I think that that's also interesting because he could have finished much better than he did. He gained 2.6 strokes on approach in that event. That is his highest mark since the Shriners, which was back in October. But he lost 2.6 strokes around the green. That's what led to that 43rd place finish. But Hadwin, over a longer term, has a good stats profile for this course. 21st in driving accuracy, 23rd in approach over the past 50 rounds. And Bermuda is not his best surface, so it's not, a Rory McIlroy situation or a Matthew Fitzpatrick situation, but it's not a bad one for him either. He ranks 36th in strokes gained putting over the past 100 rounds per Fantasy National, specifically when they are on Bermuda. So I'm expecting a pretty well-rounded performance here from Adam Hadwin, who comes in at a discount at just $8,700. I think he's pretty similar to Brian Harman, where he has good cut odds. He should have a pretty high floor, and if he puts it all together, he at least has a path to a really good weekend. So I think that both Brian Harman and Adam Hadwin give you access to a good floor without spending a whole lot of salary. And I'm not super enthused with the low 9,000 range on FanDuel, so what I want to do is try to avoid that range, get guys like Hadwin and Harman in there, and allow myself to get up to guys like Matthew Fitzpatrick, like Joel Dahmen, like Scotty Scheffler, and Viktor Hovland, all in the mid to upper 9,000 range. It's just I'm trying to avoid that low 9,000 range. Guys like Hadwin and Harman allow me to do so, and I'm inclined to take advantage here for the RBC Heritage.
$8,700 and $800 respectively for Brian Harman and Adam Hadwin. And like you said, his price went down despite making the cut last week at the Heritage here. This week, if Hadwin continue the success, you'll have a bargain on your hands at this price. That's going to do it for us here on the FanDuel Hurry Up. Jim, it's been a blast. It's been so much fun. I think we should do it again tomorrow.
Yeah, might as well run it back, come back tomorrow, talk about some NASCAR Talladega coming up on Sunday. So it should be a pretty fun weekend for sports between golf and NASCAR. Looking forward to discussing it more with you tomorrow, Greg.
It's been a few weeks since we discussed NASCAR, so I'm ready to go. I've talked a lot of UFC the last couple of weeks. Let's get back into NASCAR Talladega this weekend, but that's tomorrow. We hope you enjoyed today's edition of the Hurry Up as we preview the RBC Heritage here this weekend. For Jim Sanas, I'm Gregg Sussman. Thanks for watching. And stay safe, everybody.